The brain has to go through a process of remembering how it feels to run at each speed and trusting that your body is ready for it. You're also reconnecting brain and body pathways, and that takes time. Sometimes that just takes some time.
Welcome to the Injured Athletes Club podcast, the show that helps athletes cope with sports injuries and bounce back stronger. I'm journalist Cindy Kuzma.
And I'm mental skills coach Carrie Jackson. We're sorry you're here, but we're glad you're with us.
And this week, Coach Carrie is going to use her expertise to answer a question about the mental side of injury recovery from one of you, our listeners. But before we get into the show, we have just a couple pieces of information to share with you first.
That's right. The first piece of information is that this season of the Injured Athletes Club podcast is brought to you by Lever Movement. The lever system is an innovative way to reduce your body weight and the impact on your joints while exercising on a treadmill. It's perfect for returning to running after an injury or break, or for adding volume or speed without increasing your risk of getting hurt. Also, it's portable and you can set it up in less than 2 minutes. Use the code TIAC20 to get 20% off your purchase. Check out Lever today and take your training to the next level.
That's right. And the other thing, if you are curious to learn a little bit more about Lever and also 2 other exciting products, Fluid Running, which involves deep water running, and Better Guards, which is an innovative ankle brace, you can download a free webinar with information from all of those companies. It's really great. We did this webinar called the Injured Athletes Club Recovery Summit, the Athletes Toolkits, and we had representatives from 3 companies, including Lever Movement and the other 2 I just mentioned. And they shared a lot more about their products and how they can both help you as you're recovering from an injury and prevent you from getting injured next time. So that's directly related to our sponsor and also directly related to our question for this week too, which is interesting. So you can get that recording. You can go to our website, injuredathletesclub.com, and click on the More Resources tab. You'll find links to that webinar and other webinars that you can download and a lot of other great resources there for you too. You can access that same page by going to buymeacoffee.com/rebound. So with all that said, let's get into the question for this week. And this comes from listener and athlete Jennifer. Coach Carrie, how can I cope with treadmill anxiety? Coming off of a mild ankle fracture, my first few weeks, I was back up to speed. But lately, as I go anywhere over a jog, I feel panicky, like I'm going to fall and I have to slow down. I feel relatively sure it's all mental, but I'm wondering if you have any tips.
I do have tips.
Coach Carrie always has tips. Yay.
So thank you, Jennifer, so much for your question. I know there's definitely going to be, even if you're not a runner, if you're, treadmill's not part of your workout, there's definitely other listeners that are going to relate with that feeling of anxiety that can come as you start pushing your body to higher intensity training. So there's definitely going to be things in my answer that apply to everyone, but I'm going to speak directly to the treadmill anxiety that you're experiencing. So just in general, know that it's very common to experience feelings of anxiety as you increase your level of activity and test out your body. You may also experience feelings of anxiety when you are doing something that reminds your brain of the factors involved with your initial injury. With both of those scenarios, your brain is tuning into something that is sending a signal, creating the emotion of anxiety. It creates this emotion so you will pay attention. The anxiety can either be triggered by your thoughts or by something in your environment. Your thoughts of fear and doubt will send a distress signal telling the body to slow down. And other times your brain is picking up on something in your environment that you might not even be aware of, but your brain is picking up on that thing that reminds it of factors that were in play when you were originally injured. And with those scenarios, it's almost like your brain's way of saying, are you sure we should be doing this? You probably should slow down because remember what happened last time, right? So it's your brain is trying to protect your body. And so that's part of why this experience is happening. You're battling 2 types of readiness as you increase your intensity. There's both physical readiness to return to higher intensity training, and there is psychological readiness to return to higher intensity training. You need to make sure that your psychological readiness to return matches up with your physical readiness to return. So the key to this is to keep giving your brain messages that you can handle this and you are safe. And the way to do this is to build up your confidence slowly over time. I will say that you also do want to assess whether there's something breaking down in your technique as you hit those higher speeds. And is that breakdown what's actually making you feel unstable at that moment? So if you have a coach that you're working with, or maybe you could do, get a running assessment, like you could have them watch either live or like have someone record you and watch you run at the slower speeds versus the higher speeds and evaluate your running technique to see if anything is changing, right? So we always want to, it's not always mental. We want to rule out, like, is there actually something physiological happening? So let's assume that, like, yes, the body is capable and there's something happening that is sending that danger signal once you hit those higher speeds. So as long as you're cleared to run from your medical team, which it sounds like you are, here's something that you could try out to work on your psychological readiness. So if you feel fine, let's say running at 4.3, right? Or at the pace, there's a certain pace that you'll be running at where you feel like, okay, this feels good. I can do this. Like, I'm confident in my ability to do this. That's the place you want to start, right? So you can start at a number that's, because part of what's happening too is you have a visual trigger now. So I'm guessing in your mind, there's a set number that's like, I can run at this number and this number I can't, right? So that sometimes becomes an expectation trigger that's like triggering your brain to expect something regardless of whether your body is ready or not. So we kind of want to play with those numbers too. So whatever the number is that you're like, oh, I feel good at this number. You want to start there or even a little bit lower and build from that point. So you get yourself, at that speed that you feel comfortable. And when you're running at that speed, you want to talk to yourself. So you want to talk to yourself and coach your brain to let it, as you're doing it, to let it know. So you're reinforcing, like, see that? You can confidently run at this speed and you are safe. And you're actually saying that to yourself and talking to yourself in that way. Like, see what we're doing here? You are able to run at this speed and you are safe. You can confidently run at this speed and you are safe. And then, so you're reinforcing to your brain that you are okay. And then you can bump up the speed and do that same thing. And when I say bump up, I mean like if you're at 4.3, then you go to 4.4, right? Like, just bump it up and run there and give yourself that same message and stay at that place for a while until you're like, okay, this is boring. This is like, I got this. And then bump up from there, right? So that you're really building that confidence in a slow, methodical way and working on your psychological readiness. The brain has to go through a process of remembering how it feels to run at each speed and trusting that your body is ready for it. You're also reconnecting brain and body pathways, and that takes time. Sometimes that just takes some time. So the other factor that can be at play is your breath. So you also want to make sure that you're breathing and not holding your breath, which sends a distress signal to the brain. So sometimes the fear and panic and anxiety you feel is actually a misinterpretation of the physiological symptoms you're experiencing. So I find that sometimes athletes will forget that they're building back their fitness as well as recovering from their injury. And sometimes, something that didn't make you feel winded before might make you feel winded now. So you start to feel winded and your breathing is harder and you feel like things are tightening up. And instead of interpreting this as, oh, I need to intentionally breathe or I need to slow down, like instead of recognizing it as like, oh, maybe I'm pushing too hard, it gets interpreted as a distress signal. The physiological symptoms are interpreted as, oh, I'm freaking out. Oh, I can't do this. Oh, I better stop. Right. So as you increase the speed, maybe you start to feel apprehensive and wonder if your body can handle it, or you see the number increasing and your brain goes, uh-oh, last time I saw that number, we couldn't do this, right? So you're feeling that apprehension, and holding your breath or chest breathing. And again, that sends the distress signal. So really just like, you really want to be intentional about building your confidence up slowly, making sure you're not holding your breath, and just coaching yourself through the process. So working on all those mental training tips, also do make sure like, oh, is something breaking down in my body at that speed? And is there something that needs to be addressed physiologically as well? So I hope that helps, Jennifer. Thank you so much for giving us that question to be able to answer on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Coach Carrie. And yes, Jennifer, thank you for that. And I also want to say too, if these techniques seem helpful to you or to anyone else who's kind of coping with some of these anxieties, we do have a whole episode, Coach Carrie and Cindy Rebuild Your Confidence, that we'll link to in the show notes, that kind of builds on some of these topics. But that was so great, Coach Carrie. I am absorbing that, thinking about coaching myself through the next step of my own progression too. So thank you so much for that. Thanks for your question, Jennifer. And thank you, Jeremy Nessel, as always, for making us sound as good as possible. We are also grateful, of course, to Lever Movement for making the show possible with their financial support. You will definitely want to click through to the show notes to learn more about their system. And again, we'll put the link to that webinar that we mentioned where Brad Miles, the co-founder of Lever Movement, talks more about the product, as well as the founders of Fluid Running and representatives from Better Guards. So you're definitely going to want to check that out. To submit a question for an upcoming episode, you can email us at hello@injuredathletesclub.com. Visit our Facebook page or join our Facebook support group, which is also called the Injured Athletes Club. And by the way, about that support group, hands down, the best place on the internet. It is full of people who can give you support and advice, and they have been right where you are, or they are there right now. So get links to that support group and everything else we talk about in this episode on our website, injuredathletesclub.com. We'll see you there.